What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Elevator Life, your #1 resource for entrepreneurship in China.
Hope all of you are having a fantastic day. Today we're going to be talking about one of the best things, one of the most advantageous things about living in China, and that is the transportation.
Yep, they have a lot of people in this country and they all got to get places conveniently, so they've really set up a good infrastructure, good ways to kind of move people around, and they offer a lot of options.
So we're going to go ahead and talk about all the ways that we use to get around, the prices associated with those, the inconveniences or the conveniences about doing so in each route.
Yeah.
First off, the main way that we get around the city is taxis.
Yep.
Taxis are fantastic, especially if you're from a Western country, because you always associate taxis with pretty steep fares, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Here in China, that is not the case. Taxis here in Guangzhou run 10 RMB for how long?
Yes, for about the first 3 kilometers, so about $1.50 for the first almost 2 miles, give or take.
So yeah, I mean, you can get almost anywhere inside the actual city limits for around $5.
Yeah.
And so that is a very convenient way. We use it most of the time. Obviously, the inconvenience of using a taxi is all the traffic that you're going to run into during rush hour.
Yeah, absolutely. Traffic's a big one here. As everybody knows, China just became, I believe, the #1 country that has the most cars pretty recently, or is planning to this year. They're trying to limit that, but again, that's already difficult to deal with. The traffic's very unpredictable. Could be 10 a.m., could be 4 p.m.
It's also important to note, talking about taxis, that we're talking about Shenzhen and Guangzhou, which is far different than Shanghai and especially Beijing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Traffic conditions,
how spread out the city
is. They're a little more expensive in those parts, but for the most part, still it applies. It's cheaper than the West, in a very convenient way to get around.
Yeah, absolutely. The other option that a lot of foreigners are very fond of is the public transportation using the metro here. Metro or the bus system, depending on how...
The subway for the Americans out there.
Yeah, the subway, the metro, the tube, whatever you want to call it. That is very convenient because of the timing and the layout of the city. All the major cities in China, and even the second tier ones are developing them now, are metros that really crisscross everywhere you could want to go in the city. I'm talking from the airport really far away all the way to the southern point of this city, and east to west and everywhere in between. They're very convenient stops wherever you need to get to.
Yeah, but let's talk about the ups and downs of using it.
Yeah,
so price-wise is obviously the highest up, and it starts as low as 2 RMB per stop. But it's really worth it when you're going long distances. You skip all the traffic. That is a big thing. When we're weighing if we're going to take the taxi or if we're going to take the metro, a lot of the time it has to do with what time it is and where we're going. So for example, a taxi from our place to the airport is going to be anywhere, including tolls, about 120 RMB, which is a little less than $20. Well, you can take the metro, which is right outside our place, about a 5-minute walk max, all the way to the airport for about 10 RMB, right? Is it 10?
12. So
12 RMB, so $2. So,
And to be fair, the metro, like you said, depending on the traffic times, the airport could take twice as long in a taxi. When on the metro, you're guaranteed that 45 minutes to an hour, 15 minutes, depending on how many people are there. If it's rush hour, it'll be a little slower, but normally there is that standard time. It never stops, never breaks. It's just constant.
Another thing that I think is important to note is, why do we like to use taxis and not the metro all the time? Well, you have the push factor or the space factor. Of course, it is one of the cheapest ways to get around here, and so everyone uses it, especially during rush hour times. It is a very unpleasant place to be.
Very crowded, no personal space, hectic, and a lot of pushing.
It's very easy to get around for people that haven't been here a lot, because the map is very easy to read, so that is another reason why a lot of people coming to visit use the metro. Yeah,
they have maps overlaid over the city, which is great, and then they tell you what every exit, kind of where it will put you out, what intersections. Very convenient to use. Bus, you have to be a little more knowledgeable with Chinese, unless you have a friend help you out where you need to get where you need to get going. And again, depends on traffic and the time of day, but also very cheap option. A couple RMB will get you anywhere on that bus route.
Those are for more advanced people living in China that know exactly their routes when they're getting off, but they have buses that go everywhere and are running all the time.
Yeah,
even
absolutely.
inner city buses from here to Guangzhou, here to Hong Kong, or here to Guangzhou, here to Shenzhen, here to Hong Kong, and that goes all throughout China. The public system, transportation system is fantastic.
Yeah, it's excellent. Another thing another way that people get around in Beijing, Shenzhen, and Shanghai a lot is by scooter. So a lot of people cruise around on their own motorcycles, or I guess they're just scooters, is what we call them in English. And very
mopeds.
Mopeds, that's it. Dang, I forgot the word. It's really easy way to cruise around town. A lot of foreigners use these. A lot of Chinese people use these in these cities. They're outlawed in the city center in Guangzhou. So we don't. And also, it's a little dangerous, kind of on those roadways. You know, we've heard some horror stories, but very convenient if you're going by yourself. If you're going a couple blocks, you know, walking those couple blocks in Beijing in the winter or Guangzhou in the summer is terrible. You know, with a scooter, it's much more convenient.
Well, yeah, one of our buddies down here has one of those bikes that is also powered, motor powered, but you can pedal it. He cruises that thing all over the city, absolutely loves it. But yeah, mopeds and bicycles are big transportation systems, obviously all around China. Those aren't obviously going to be used by a lot of people unless you're living here. Then that is something to look into, depending on where you live. Yeah,
depending on where you live, and of course, weather is a big X factor, and pollution. Those are two things you're gonna have to be careful of for if you're doing it yourself.
Exactly. One last thing before we finish up here is when you're using a taxi, guys, do not be nervous. Show them the address; it'll be good to go. Most of the time, 90% of the time, they'll know where to take you, and they're really good about it. About trying to not rip you off. Maybe I've noticed it less because we've been here. But yeah, try to stay away from, for example, when you get to the airport, using unofficial taxis.
The guys who say they're taxis are taxis.
And that goes for everything. Always try to use the official ones because the meter will make sure you're not getting ripped off.
Yeah, and that's very true. That's something you won't find here is the taxi drivers. I mean, there's different routes from our apartment to say somewhere in Taojin, a district 5, 10, 15 minutes away. And all of them, plus or minus $1, is what you're looking at in difference-wise. Whatever the taxi thinks is best, or whatever's fastest. And sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. And before we go, we would like to mention Uber, which is new here to China. We met the Uber team from Guangzhou, great people, last weekend. And they're now in Shanghai, Shenzhen, and Guangzhou. And Uber is just your personal service driver app. Very convenient, very nice cars, and a great business model. So, but the thing is, it's a little more costly. They're a little more, I guess, costs a little more than taking a taxi, but you know, a lot more convenient and comfortable.
Definitely, guys. So to round it up, transportation in China, it's fantastic. There's ways to get you anywhere you need to be, and it's very cost effective. As always, if you're interested in doing business, being an entrepreneur, taking advantage of the Chinese market, InnerChina.co is our private entrepreneurship community. It's the place to be. It's where we're making things happen.
Absolutely. So if that sounds like you, get in there.
All right, guys.
Cheers.
Have a good one.